All right, we'd like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity with Amish and Patrick Ryan. Patrick, you're included in this because Cheryl teases and taunts me a lot. She does not do this intentionally. She does this subconsciously. She just wants to irritate me subconsciously. I'm not saying this is because she's a woman. Okay. I'm not saying this. He is the one that introduced me to the concept 100% honest 100% of the time. This is a concept that I'm still struggling with. It just doesn't seem that people want honesty. Anyways, so Patrick, you have rules. I forget the word that you used. Maybe I'll find it. So you go ahead and have rules that you use. And Cheryl has rules too, but Cheryl doesn't realize the rules that she has. You do, Patrick, which is interesting. And so we were talking about managing up and out. And so this isn't just for Amish, this is for everybody. Like in managing up and out, there's a genius in it, absolutely brilliant. Whoever developed that is a freaking genius. The person is probably the smartest person in the whole 8 billion plus people. So when you read something or watch something, what you do is you go ahead and say, immediately after you read it or watch it, you say, these are what did I learn? So you put on an email and share with other people. What did I learn? You put the title of what it is, like the white paper. So you go and do, on the white papers, but it's a video like any of the podcasts too. So you go ahead and say, hey, I watched one dash one I read WIFM, white or consistent and committed, whichever one you did, the title. And then you say, what did I learn? And you say, what action will I take from what I learned? And then what's the next thing I need to learn? So Cheryl, what's the absolute crazy freaking genius of that process, that system, that discipline?
What's the genius of it?
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to word it, Mark.
Go ahead and say it in Amish, and I'll go ahead Amish Dutch, and I'll translate it for you.
For me, what it does for me is it makes me aware.
Like Amish Dutch.
Huh?
That doesn't sound like Amish Dutch to me.
Okay. I'll convert if I have to, but what it does for me for the managing up and out is it makes me aware more so of what I read. It helps me internalize it better. Because for me, I have to kind of think on, okay, how do I word that? Or what wording makes sense when somebody else is reading it? And I guess the final answer on that is with managing up and out on what action will I take and what do I do next? It's the what action will I take that I struggle with to then do that.
Right. So here's the genius of it. The genius of it is that what did I learn? It forces us to think that we're not reading this for entertainment.
Right.
We're not reading this to go ahead and feel good. We're reading it to learn something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What action am I going to take from it? What that does is there's a verse in the Bible where it says knowledge puffeth up. What does that mean? It means that knowledge makes us feel smart.
Right.
So how do you how do you not do that? Because knowledge, when we feel smart, we then go ahead and defeat the whole purpose of knowledge, which is the application of what we've learned. And so we're not humble because we feel smart because we now know something. And so it defeats the whole purpose of this. Like if you ask highly knowledgeable people or pastors or bishops or ministers or whatever, if you ask them, how do you prevent knowledge from puffing up? I've never met one pastor, bishop, minister. I've never met one that knows the answer to that, which is weird to me. I mean, it's like you'd think that a pastor who went to seminary and, spent 6, 8, 9 years of his life or her life learning about the Bible, you'd think that they would know that, but they don't. So
Okay, say that question again.
So how do you prevent knowledge from puffing up?
Okay.
So the answer to that question, which I've never had a pastor ever give me the answer to, it's a simple answer. You take action, you do. Because doing something humbles us. Knowledge alone makes us feel smart, but when we do something, we feel stupid again because whatever we've learned doesn't work. It just doesn't. You read a book on marriage and doesn't help your marriage. You read a book on kids, it doesn't help your kids. You read a book on business, it doesn't help. It's like, so, this is why there's a saying that teachers hate, and that is, if you can't do something, teach it. Like, what?
Yeah.
And so the second thing, first thing is you go in with, I'm not going in to have fun, to be entertained, or to feel smart after I read it. I am going in to learn something. Now, when we learn something that's superficial knowledge. It's not deep. Now you can talk. I won't even name names of people who talk like they know a lot about a lot of things. But what is it? I think it's their knowledge is, an inch deep and a mile wide. Like they have superficial because they've never done anything and they come across as being really smart. Like, ooh, you're a really smart person, but they're not. They don't know because they're not doing. They're talking. This is the second thing on do. You do something. What are you going to do? Why in the world would you read something if you're not going to do something with it? Doesn't make sense. I mean, it doesn't make any sense unless, of course, you just want to feel smart, which,
Right.
and so the second is do. So first is what did I learn? You go in with intention of learning. Second is, what are you going to do? So we immediately go from, learning to doing, because doing is where deep knowledge comes from. It's the only way deep knowledge is there. You have to do it. It's the only way that deep knowledge is there. It's the only way.
That makes sense.
Now, then it's, what do I need to learn next? So it's like, I can't sit back on my laurels and just go ahead. I remember a Calvin and Hobbes comic where he's in, for kindergarten. He comes home. He's like, Mom, I'm not going to school anymore. Calvin, you're in kindergarten. What do you mean you're not going? I'm not going to school anymore. She's like, Calvin, you're going to school. No, I don't. Why aren't you going to school? Because I've learned everything I need to learn. And so this is what I love about the Amish. Not all Amish and not all English. I'm just saying, in my experience about the Amish, it seems like they've got this education thing down because they don't jam it down your throat until you go ahead and hate, education. It seems like most Amish that I know, they go ahead and they feel that they've missed something in life, that they haven't learned something in life. And to me, that's a gift of a lifetime to say, I'm missing things in life that I should know. It's just mine. So you put on this is not brain surgery or rocket science, but I can't tell you how many times I've explained this to people and they don't do it. Put the name so people know what white paper or podcast that you're reviewing. What did I learn? What action am I going to take from what I did learn, and what do I need to learn next? Now, this is very important. You have to do it as immediately after you read it or watch it. When I say immediate, any ideas what that means, Cheryl?
I guess not if you're asking, but because to me is like right after, like immediately.
Right? I can't tell you how many times I've said this, and people are like, "Oh, I didn't understand." What's not to understand, for crying out loud? It's immediate. It's not the next morning. It's not in 10 minutes. It's not in an hour. It's not after lunch. You read it, you write. You watch it, you write. You write those things. Just boom, just like that. Take 3 minutes. Do you know, Cheryl, why people don't do that?
No, please tell me.
It's ego.
Okay. Why is it ego?
People are afraid. They're
Why,
afraid. They're
how
they're
does afraid latch on to ego? I don't get that.
they're afraid they're going to look bad or look stupid.
Oh. Okay, that actually makes sense.
Right? There's a few things I say that do make sense. I mean, everything I say makes sense. It's just that, you know, people have got to want to think about, like, so they're afraid of looking bad, so they don't do it. They're insecure. Now, Patrick is thinking, I'm not insecure. Like, okay, Patrick, you know, I'm not saying that, there are certain genders, Patrick, which, a few people have questioned you over the years. And I'm not saying that there are certain genders that think that they're God, where they speak something and it comes into existence. I'm not saying that. Uh, it's weird to me where people say, this is true, this is not true. And it's like, do you have any evidence? Because I've got some evidence that might go ahead and lend to another thing. And so, like, I want to think about it. Why? Why don't you just share what you thought? Because you don't have confidence in your quick thought. In the book Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. Well, I'm going to read it again. Why? Why don't you write down everything you thought, and your mind will get quicker, faster. You'll get better response. You'll gain confidence. And if you look bad, don't worry. Nobody else is looking at you. Like, I think Melissa has something on her refrigerator. It was from a woman, I think in her 60s or something. And it said something to the extent, the first 20 years of my life, what was it? Something about I wanted to look good. The second 20 years of my life, I tried to impress people or something. And then, the third, after that, then I realized nobody was even looking at me.
I've heard that saying. I don't know the exact words either, but I've heard.
It's like, people are not looking to go ahead and say, they'll just be impressed that you actually shared something. Yeah. See, writing is part of verbal communication. People don't realize. So writing is part of verbal communication. The more you write, the better writer you'll be. And then the better thinker you will be, and the better verbal communicator you will be, the more you write.
Wow. Okay.
And so Cheryl's got, a lot more. She said she reads a white paper twice. Okay. I'm not saying she should or shouldn't. I'm just saying she's got a lot of white papers to get through. And I'm kicking out new white papers faster than she can read, the current white papers. Seriously. I mean, Patrick will vouch for that, poor guy. Like, and so I'm so questions, Cheryl.
Okay, so if I go through a white paper and I read it the first time,
Yep.
I mean, I have to probably do this to, to learn how to do this different. But as of right now, if I go through a white paper and I read it and I respond to it right away,
Yep. Are you
that
concerned that I'm going to die, have a heart attack, of shock
no,
and
no, I
surprise?
don't care. I don't
Oh, you
care
don't
what I
care if I
write down
die?
because it's my thoughts and I'm responsible for those thoughts and I don't care. It's just sometimes I think I read a little bit too fast because I want to get to the end. I want to see what it is. And then I go back the second time and I read it slow, more slow. But each time so far that I've done, especially a white paper, when I do go back and read it the second time, I'm like, oh, okay, that looks different than it did the first time I read it.
So do you know why you're sharing this with me? There's 10 reasons.
I don't know, Mark. Who knows?
I might.
Huh?
I might know.
Okay, what's the reason?
Ego. See, your ego, your ego is it's being exposed and it hates being exposed. It wants to seduce me. It wants to go ahead and it wants to like it's going to seduce me. And it's like it's just, so it's going to go ahead and seduce me. So right here, number 3, seduce. Like it's going to seduce me and say, there's a good reason why. And it's like, okay, I thought we covered that, but it's okay. And so do it the first time. You want to read it the second time. If you read it the second time, and after you read it the second time, what do you do immediately after that?
Do
You
manage
manage
up
up
and
and
out
out
again.
again because you read it twice. It's
Okay.
minutes for crying out loud. And then you say, did I go ahead and really learn? I mean, I learned a little more. Was that little more worth going through and reading again? Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. You know, so you're continually looking at you have how many minutes in the day?
1444.
Oh, so yeah, 1440, I believe.
40, sorry. Yep.
No, that's okay. You gave yourself an extra 4 minutes, which is pretty cool. And then how many minutes in a week?
10,080.
Yeah, good. See, Cheryl knows this. It's the reflex. And so she understands. And so what we can be doing with that time, what we can be doing with that time is a lot of things. And so people who say they don't have time, it's because they don't understand time and they don't understand how to steward time, and more likely, kind of harsh, but it's true, is they're living a life of insignificance. And so they waste a ton of time and they don't even know it. And so the analytic is so caught up, Patrick. I'm not saying this is you, that you ask too many questions. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that you need to go ahead and ask all those questions. And are you asking all those questions, Patrick? Again, this is not all about you, Patrick. I don't want you to get the wrong idea. And so are you asking all those questions to protect your ego, to protect from being wrong? The analytic, they don't like making decisions. They don't like putting things out there. They don't like being wrong. I mean, I can't tell you, Cheryl, how many people have said to me, nobody likes being wrong. And I said, I do. They're like, no, you don't. Okay. I'm like, whatever. So see, I know I'm wrong. I know I'm not thinking in the most effective way. I just don't know where. So when I find out that there's a better way to think than the way I'm thinking, that means, I missed something. Like, for example, I'm 60 years old and I just discovered like maybe the most important question that a human being could ever ask themselves.
Say that again. Sorry.
I'm 60 years old,
Okay.
and I might have just discovered the most important question that a human being could ever ask themselves.
What's that question?
How do you want people to think of you? How do you want them to see you and think about you? Think of you.
Okay.
And write it down and then share it. And I think, Mark, you've come up with thousands of questions, literally. And you didn't even, like this question, you didn't even, like it never, like, man, are you stupid? Like nobody likes to feel stupid. I do. Why are you laughing?
I don't know. It just makes me smile when you say that.
So this
Why
is
do you like to feel stupid?
because then I have self-awareness. Like, would you rather, know that you're stupid or not know you're stupid? Like to me,
I guess I'd rather know, like the manage up and out. I'd rather know immediately.
right. Like I'd rather, because then I can fix it. Like, would you rather? That's a great question too. Like that coffee connections, we ought to just ask strangers, just go up and say, hey, I have a question for you. I was on this great podcast this morning, and I'm telling you, like, man, you ought to be on this podcast, especially before Coffee Connection, because Mark's on fire. But yeah, great question is, would you rather be stupid and know it immediately, or would you rather not? Or would you rather not be stupid, or be stupid and not know it? Like something like that. Like I
Yeah.
just figured out ignorance versus stupid. Like how to define it so tight, so clean that like only somebody who's stupid wants to be stupid cannot understand it. So what's the difference between ignorance and stupid? Ignorance is not knowing what to do,
Mhm.
and stupid is not doing what we know.
Yeah.
So questions?
Nope.
So, I can't tell you, Cheryl, how many people are not going to go ahead and manage up and out immediately after they read or watch something.
Well, I know one thing. I'm going to give it a try,
Cool. I think you will.
see what it does.
Yeah.
Okay. I can respond to some of the emails on what I immediately thought when I first read them.
Write an email. That's exactly what you do. And what you do is when you go ahead, what's so cool, that's the coolest experience in the world, is when you go ahead and say something that's stupid and somebody points it out. Like, Cheryl, that was a really stupid thing you say. And you say, wow, I can see that. That's really awesome. And people will like you. Or when you go ahead and say something stupid, or you go back and read something and you go ahead and you say that was stupid, and people come back and say, Cheryl, that was so brilliant. Like you're like 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 you're just like, whoa. So um so hopefully, you're going into these white papers. You're going into the white papers, manage up and out. In addition to that, or maybe you're going into the voices of integrity,
I'm doing the LP workbook right now.
right?
I'm not doing anything else as far as the other white papers or anything.
Right. So white papers, we got the white paper. What about the powerful video libraries? What about those? Yeah. Yeah. You go ahead, and as soon as you watch one of these videos, these bad boys, you go ahead and manage up and out to people. You share the video before you watch the podcast, before you get other people's thoughts on it. Share your own thoughts. And if you're not willing to do that, it's ego. I'm just telling you, you can believe it or not believe it, but it's just ego. you're afraid. You're afraid of sharing your thoughts and what other people will think of your thoughts, which reveals a lot about you that you probably don't want to know, but at a subconscious level, you do want to know. And so, and then the mind models, like all of this stuff, anything you're seeing, anything you're reading, anything you're watching, anything at all, you go ahead and share with people and share it with your, your inner group of people. Like share it with your art mentor, your art buddy. Just share it with them. And then like, it's okay. Like, it's okay. Like you just share your first thoughts. Take 3 minutes and just share it. And so hopefully this is helpful. If you haven't, if you haven't registered for Life GPS, you'll want to do that. I'm just saying that's when you get into community. That's when you get into community. So there's a bunch of, places, I think in the podcast area, in the different podcasts, the library, yeah. In here, in each of the libraries, you can join groups specifically connected into that group. And so there's a really active group podcast with young men. And so you can participate, you can join the, when I want to find it, I can't find it, but there's something in here about oh, there it is, I think. Yeah, here it is. So when you see this, Life GPS, you join that group, and there's all kinds of groups and all different types of topics and stuff like that. So like-minded people, and start sharing those things. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.